in to the 49ers Rush podcast, and here is your host, John Chapman.
Welcome to another episode of the 49ers Rush podcast. I'm your host, John Chapman, and I apologize for the wait. One thing I will say is I do love all the support on Twitter and all the other formats, social media sites, just saying, hey, where is my 49ers Rush podcast? I apologize. I was out of town this weekend, and I tried to get something done yesterday, and technical difficulties, recorded a whole episode only for it to be lost. Yay, fun. But that's okay. We've got a great episode for you today, and so much news. We're going to have back-to-back episodes, one today and one tomorrow. Today we'll be breaking down the offense. I mean, they came out, the 49ers, and they won 27-17 against the Chiefs. We're 3-0 in the preseason, baby. And the one thing that is great is, man, for all of the naysayers out there that were so worried about Jimmy Garoppolo, man, the boy looked good. Looked really good. So we're going to get into him, MVPs, break down everything, injuries, updated practice reports. There's a lot of news coming out for the 49ers on all those guys we've been waiting on, who practiced today and who didn't. But a couple things that we need to understand. The calendar is key for this next week. So I am recording this Monday afternoon, and our last game is Thursday. You know, this is going to be our third game in 10 days, and then we have to cut down to 53 on Saturday. So again, we're playing the Chargers on Thursday at 7 p.m., and then we're going to have basically 48 hours from that point, almost exactly, to cut down a lot of players. So it's going to be a lot of news. I'm hoping to be on here almost every single day up until that point with projections and all that. I will definitely get the defensive breakdown to you guys by tomorrow. And then as soon as that game happens, we'll break down that game and get out projections and see what we got. And then after Sunday, you know, we're going to have our final 53-man rosters, injured reserve, all those things will be finalized. And then it's time to start getting ready for week one. You know, we play at Tampa Bay week one. That Sunday, we have the late kickoff at 1:25 our time. We're going to have 10 days between our last preseason game and week one, and it's going to be fascinating. So there's so many fun question marks, and it could go so many different ways between now and then, but all good news. Really, really excited. And before we jump into MVPs and all that stuff, and again, today is just offense. It's going to be very detailed, to say the least. We're going to go position by position, breaking down the quarterbacks. We'll go O-line, pressures allowed, run blocking grades, top 5 players, starters. The preseason's fun because, man, once you're in the regular season, your starters play pretty much the entire game. Well, we're getting lots of players are getting play time. So I do want to update, and this is a report that just came out literally 4 minutes ago from Matt Barrows, who is one of my favorite follows. If you don't follow him, you must do so. We started off today with the transaction, and it seems like our very first draft pick has kind of gone the way of the dodo. Tim Harris, who looked really, really good. They decided to move him to IR. So because he is going to be on injured reserve list, he's going to be done. He can't even be on the PUP. And because he was active, then got hurt, that changes kind of the formality of the whole thing. But, and kind of a feel-good news, we sign Johnny Holland's son. This is really, really cool. Jordan Holland, who was not drafted. He's out of Prairie View A&M, and he's one of our coaches, our outside linebackers coach's son. And so pretty cool. He had a tryout with the San Francisco 49ers in the spring, and just want to say welcome. Really curious to see if he will get some playing time. I don't think that there is really even a 1% chance that he is going to make the roster. Hey, man, when things like this happen, you've got to be pretty excited. He even helped sell tickets last year for the 49ers, so you can kind of see what's going on there. Pretty cool. I love our organization, our front office. They definitely get the picture of the human element, and I appreciate that. Now, lots of practice updates as far as players who are playing and not. Probably the best news of the day, and this is huge, center Western Richburg is off of the PUP list and is practicing today. This is huge, one, because you know, Kyle Shanahan has said almost the entire offseason that he's close. This was the key week for him to come back. Now, we'll just have to see how he responds. You know, it's one of those things. We saw Jerick McKinnon come off the list, and it was awful. So that's one thing that we just got to watch. Now, as far as other players that are practicing as well, Dee Ford back at practice, amazing news. George Kittle back at practice, amazing news. That is 2 of our top 5 players on our franchise that we are very dependent upon coming back and playing. So great to have those guys back. Adrian Colbert back, Ronald Blair back, Julian Taylor back, Elijah Lee back, Joshua Garnett back. So a lot of depth in all those things. However, players not at practice, Dante Pettis, Jalen Hurd, Jerick McKinnon, and Raheem Mostert. Now, Raheem Mostert, he had a quad bruise or contusion, and so that's why he was kind of a surprising inactive from the game. Nobody really knew what was going on there. And Kyle Shanahan even said in his press conference, you guys didn't even know he was injured. He had just a small bump the last practice before the game against Kansas City, so he sat out. And now the thing is, with Dante Pettis, we don't really know what's up with that one. Jalen Hurd had some back tightness, and so he was also a surprising scratch there. But we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens here. But, I'm not really worried about Pettis or Hurd. McKinnon's the big one, and Raheem Mostert, not really worried there either. Now, what is shocking is there's 0 Bosa news. That is kind of a big deal. Kyle Shanahan did say in his press conference that based on this week with Bosa, will determine his week 1 availability. My guess is, and again, I'll update this from, the very first time that the injury happened, best case scenario is Bosa is able to come back for pass rush downs only and be limited to, 13 to 14 snaps, come in on long third down, something like that week 1. Worst case scenario is he's going to be out until the bye week, which I don't think is going to be that. There's been no setbacks, and the fact that they're saying, hey, he could be back this week, that's good news. So, but just understand he will be phased in slowly, and this is kind of the plan that they had with him anyway. Whenever training camp and all that stuff started, he was working with the 2s and base downs, and then pass rushing downs or obvious pass plays, he was working with the 1s. This is what we should expect for him, almost very similar to Aldon Smith and what happened there. Let's jump over quickly for the offensive MVP, and man, here's the thing. I struggled mightily with which one, and I kept going back and forth here because I think that there's 2 solid people that deserve it, and those 2 people are Jimmy Garoppolo and Matt Breida. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is much more valuable just because of his position, coming off that poor performance and all those things, but Matt Breida just created on his own over and over and over again. That touchdown catch was absolutely bananas. And, we're going to get into all of those things and break down the positions. But before we do that, I want to go through and talk about the starters, okay? Because this is what's key. The third preseason game is the most important preseason game. I would be willing to say it's more important than all 3 of the other preseason games combined. With our 4th preseason game coming up, our starters will not play at all. It is basically get your body right for week 1. They're already scheming and planning for Tampa Bay. They're not going to be working on the game against the Chargers. I can guarantee you that. So starters, if we start on the outside and work our way in, the 2 wide receivers were Dante Pettis and Marquise Goodwin. We saw that again. Now I will say this, Deebo Samuel got in with the first group on the 2nd drive, which was great to see. It did seem like they were allowing all of the kind of 1st and 2nd team wide receivers to work their way in, and I think we're going to see that in the regular season as well, where, one drive's going to be Dante Pettis and Goodwin out there and Kendrick Bourne, and then the next drive you're going to see Deebo and Jalen Hurd and Richie James and things like that. So kind of get used to seeing that. Now, offensive line, we from left to right, Staley, Tomlinson, Garland stepped in and got 38 snaps at the center position. Mike Pearson at right guard, he was kind of one of the first ones to get out, and then Mike McGlinchey as well. kind of interesting that the entire starting offensive line played 38 snaps, but Mike Pearson only played 22. And, Coach Shanahan came out and said, yeah, we wanted to get a couple other guys some work there and just kind of rest Mike, who he played very, very well. Now, the tight end was Levine Toilolo. He had an awful game, but that's okay. We'll talk more about that. Then the backfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Juszczyk, and Tevin Coleman. So as far as just the offensive starters, those are the guys that were out there. Let's go through just a real quick run through of the drives and what kind of conspired throughout the night just on the offensive side, okay? So we had 9 total drives, and it didn't start off great, but it wasn't really bad either. We had a turnover on downs the very first the very first drive. It's 3rd and 1. We get stuffed at the goal line, then a tipped pass on 4th down. I love that they went for it there. I had a couple of responses on Twitter. Man, how aggressive should our play calling be this year? I'm so sick and tired of field goals. I love that we have one of the best kickers in all of football. However, I want aggressive mindset from our front office to our coaching staff to our players and especially our quarterback. And so if we're 4th and 1, especially in a preseason game, I want to give it a shot. I want to see what we can do out there. The second drive we came out, and it's funny because, Jimmy Garoppolo gets sacked, and instantaneously he just seemed to calm the hell down. This is huge. You got to take that first big hit after coming back from an injury. And sometimes it's funny, whenever I was coaching, and we would run the zone read with our quarterback and tell him to do a keeper whenever we had to start a sophomore one time, because what we wanted to do was we wanted to get him calmed down. And one of the best ways to do that is a super easy kind of screen pass, whatever, a low risk pass to get the, your juices flowing, or, man, let your quarterback take a hit. And he was a big kid. He could handle it. But until he got hit, he was just a deer in the headlights. And so it seemed like that kind of happened with Garoppolo as well. And he looked great on the second drive. It was probably the best drive of the game. If you go back and you head over to my Twitter feed at JL_Chapman, I put a little compilation together of all the passes from that second drive. And he looked great. He really, really looked good. Now, none of the passes were, how do I say this? They weren't like the best passes ever, but coming off of week 2 preseason where you're just like, oh crap, and the media is going to say, oh, there's a problem with Jimmy Garoppolo and all these things, and then you just watch that second drive, whatever concerns that you had for this quarterback, you've got to just deep breath and say, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, he has what it is. He looked great. Third drive was a punt, 3 and out. Staley gave up a sack to Frank Clark, which was kind of a bummer. That was a big one. He got beat pretty bad there. This is back-to-back games. Staley got beat for a sack, which you don't want to see, or at least a quarterback hit in the first one. Second preseason game wasn't a sack. So, fourth drive, field goal. Very nice drive. Jimmy G and Breida created all the way. Breida was creating the whole game on his own. You just got to give that guy the ball. He is unbelievable. Fifth drive, field goal. We get a score again right before halftime, and it was fun to see. It was a 2-minute drill. They started on the 45. They started with 1:45 left on their own 40. And so they had 60 yards to go. They didn't get all the way, and Jimmy was killing it on the drive. But every single time Tevin Coleman was in there, it was a negative play, and then they put Breida in there, and it was a positive play. But we ended up kicking a 34-yard field goal with 12 seconds left, and that was halftime. So for Jimmy Garoppolo, he was in there for 5 drives. They scored on 3 of those, 1 touchdown and 2 field goals. One of them was a turnover on downs that she could have had a field goal again. So you've got to be very, very happy with that first team offense. They did great. Now, the second half, after we come out, Mullins took over, and he basically was a quarterback for pretty much the whole game. Wilson Speight got in there for a few plays at the very end, but again, it was mostly, it's interesting to see that, how do I say this? Kyle Shanahan talked about it at the end of the game about the quarterback controversy. And he basically tried to silence it as soon as the question was asked. And he wasn't really even asked. He just said, oh, we're going to keep all 3 quarterbacks. We have 3 NFL quarterbacks. Most teams don't have that luxury. We're keeping all 3. This is coach speak. Is there a possibility we keep all three? Yes, 100%. He is trying to get a trade. He's trying to facilitate a trade, and obviously Nick Mullins is the number 2, and CJ is the number 3. But we have a lot of positions where the roster limits are going to be tough, especially with a lot of guys on the brink of injuries. So this is something that is going to be interesting to watch. I would be willing to say there's a 50-50 chance one of these backup quarterbacks get traded. The question is, obviously, I want to keep Nick Mullins. I love Nick Mullins. But the question is, well, if you can only get a 6th or a 7th for CJ, but you might be able to get a 3rd for Nick Mullins, would you prefer to take that? I'm not saying I would, so calm down. I'm sure you're going to be in my mentions. That's okay. I love you guys. Bring it. I like the heat. I don't have a problem with it. But that's a legitimate question that has to be asked. Would you, a 3rd round pick return would be incredible, but I do love me some Nick Mullins, and he is so easy to root for. Now, another thing that's going to be interesting to see in week 4 of the preseason is it going to be the CJ show with Wilson Speight? Will Mullins not get a snap because you're resting him? Or do you try to put him on? I don't know what's going to happen. I really, really don't. So something important to watch and just see what goes on. So we come out of halftime for our 6th drive. We punt after Brunskill gave up a sack. We only allowed 2 sacks the whole game. One was on Brunskill and one was from Joe Staley. Outside of that, our quarterbacks were untouched. 0 pressures, hurries, or quarterback hits were allowed, according to Pro Football Focus. That was it, just 2 sacks, and that was all. 7th drive, we get a touchdown on a Jeff Wilson run. It was an amazing drive by Nick Mullins. He was dealing. You could tell he was feeling it. He looked amazing. 8th drive, another touchdown run for Jeff Wilson. Richie James had a couple great plays on that. Probably one of the better plays of the day from an individual performance. He catches just a little kind of hook curl route and then spins out and just made the defender look awful and gained a lot of yards extra after that to convert on 3rd down. He had a good game. And then the 9th drive, we just kneeled out. Time was basically over, and that's where we were there. Now, what I want to do now is try to step back and let's look at some team stats from an offensive side, because make no mistake, we won this game by 10 points, 27-17. We dominated the Kansas City Chiefs. That's just, it's hard to get outside of that. We outgained them in almost every single facet of the game. 23 first downs for the 49ers to 12 for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's almost doubled. That's incredible. On top of that, 3rd down efficiency was absolutely phenomenal. We go 9 for 15 on 3rd down conversions. That is great. Basically, your success rate for that, 50% you can live with. You're looking for closer to 60 to 70%, and we hit that. We were 0 for 1 on 4th down. That's whenever Jimmy Garoppolo had that pass batted down, but just total plays, and this is what Shanahan has done everywhere. 68 total plays to 46 for Kansas City. That's impressive. We outgained them 140 total yards. We had 381 yards. Same drives, all those things, but we were able to continue to convert 3rd downs, and that's huge. That's what you got to do. You just got to stay consistent, and that's the thing. We were sacked twice for 15 yards. We got 3 sacks for 13 yards. So that's huge. Rushing, we doubled them up. We had 124 rushing yards. Kansas City Chiefs 63. These are all good things. 2 for 4 in the red zone. You can live with that. 50% is usually your goal there. One thing that was interesting to note, we only had 4 penalties, compared to 10 penalties for over 100 some odd yards the previous week. So that's huge. Very clean football game on our part. 0 turnovers. We had the muffed punt by Dante Pettis, but there was nobody within 20 yards of him. And so we were able to get on that one pretty much with ease. So that wasn't too big of a deal. Now, before we jump on and we jump into individual performances, I wanted to take a second and just thank our sponsor, because holy freaking cow, I love these guys. We worked with them last year. MyBookie is the best place to bet on football every weekend. One of my favorite things to do, and a big reason why I wait to kind of work with them, is it's football season. I don't bet on other sports. I love other sports. I watch other sports, but I know football, and I bet on football through MyBookie. And one of the best things about it is they're hosting the first online handicapping super contest. First place is guaranteed to win at least $100,000, and it only costs $100 to enter. And so it's a big tournament. It's going to be a lot of fun. All you got to do is pick 5 NFL games against the spread every week to climb the leaderboard. And if you do that, huge cash prize pool, and it's guaranteed cash that's going to be paid out. It's going to be a lot of fun. So here's the deal. I usually work with sponsors all the time, and it's people that I know I can trust, and that's why I like MyBookie. And again, the second year that I've worked with these guys, because I believe in them. You bet, you win, they pay. Very easy to get money in and out. You don't have to worry about like a hassle or any of those things. And one of the best things, they have live in-game betting on every NFL game. And so, like, if you feel something is going to happen and you're liking this fantasy player and you want to know how many fantasy points this guy's going to get, you can bet on individual players, whether they're going to score 12 points or less, 12 points or more. You get to kind of pick what it is you want. And here's what's awesome. I'm very proud about this one because it's up big time from last year. They are guaranteeing only my listeners $1,000 first deposit bonus, which means when you set up an account and your very first deposit, they're going to double it for you. All you have to do is use the promo code 49ers to activate the offer. Again, visit MyBookie online today. That's MyBookie. Use the promo code 49ers. Again, 49ERS. And shoot, bet, win, get paid, make $1,000 extra dollars. So again, they double your first deposit, so up to $1,000. So just want to say thanks to them for all the support for the show. That's MyBookie, again, promo code 49ers. All right, let's jump into top and bottom players. Oh boy, all right. This preseason has been up and down for Richie James, but he finished as the Pro Football Focus #1 overall player, and he just had a hell of a game. Now, I guess the weird thing is, he struggled with run blocking big time. However, he was just so good in the passing game and creating on his own, and he got first downs on almost every single catch he had, which was great. Jordan Matthews scored up there as well, and he was pretty much the opposite. Jordan Matthews, he had that deep pass down the middle where he could have scored a touchdown and Mullins overthrew him, but he is a great run blocker from inside. He had the highest run blocking grade of any player on our team, looked great. Mike Pearson only got 22 snaps with the starters, but he just looked great. The only negative play he had is where he was blocking Chris Jones on 4th and 1, and Chris Jones was able to jump up and bat down the Jimmy Garoppolo pass, which totally, stalled the drive, but he's had a heck of a game. He played very, very well. Finish that out with Matt Breida and Ben Garland, which is great news for 49ers fan, because if Ben Garland can play, that guy's going to be our backup guard and our backup center. He's going to back up the entire interior, and if a big question mark of this team, and one that I've called us out on the entire year, is interior O-line depth, and Ben Garland seems to shore that up. Now, a couple guys just to mention, honorable mention, Mike McGlinchey, Jimmy Garoppolo were the next ones up. So those are kind of the top-graded guys, and we're going to go through the positions with some specific stats on each one in a second. But that kind of lets you just know where everybody was at. Now, the worst performers, and I didn't think that this one was close. Tevin Coleman looked terrible. Tevin Coleman has continued to look terrible. Now, the one area where he did do well in is pass blocking. He actually pass blocked pretty well. He was only in there for 3 pass block plays, but he picked up somebody every single time, which anytime you can protect your quarterback and you're a ball carrier, there's kind of 2 guys. You have Tevin Coleman that you can keep in versus the blitz and things like that, and then you have Matt Breida that can release out into the flats and is a little bit more of a concern. And this is something that, defensive coaches will watch and attest to, because if you see a better receiving back, you don't want to send your linebackers on a blitz, because that's scary stuff. You can get a running back out in the flats that can create on his own, and that's scary. Tevin Coleman has great speed, but he has to have a hole first. And so he's not as good a receiving option as Matt Breida is. Sam Young, oh man, he had a good week, and then he had a really, really bad week. Daniel Helm and Levine Toilolo, 2 different tight ends. It's not looking good for Tololo. I really do think that he's kind of playing himself out of a roster spot. He's good at two things. He's not a great receiving option, but he can block very, very well. His pass blocking is always incredible. But again, the 49ers really like to let, the tight end out, and whenever he's dropping passes multiple weeks in a row, that's going to hurt. And Justin School, our rookie right tackle, I think he's going to be the next rookie that just doesn't make it. Unfortunately, Caden Smith would be sixth. I really wish that he would step his game up, but he's just... That's the thing, man. You try to go after these rookies late, like Justin School and Caden Smith, and you're hoping that they're going to be able to step up and perform, but it just hasn't happened. And because it just really hasn't happened, you got to kind of scratch your head. What do we do at that right tackle position? Because it sure as hell ain't Willie Beavers. Is it going to be Brunskill, who's up and down? I wouldn't be surprised if we make some type of transaction to get somebody in there that can play tackle, because we do not have a swing tackle in place that is NFL ready at this moment. So let's continue our conversation about the line and just kind of look at what happened here. Okay, so first off, Joe Staley took 38 snaps at left tackle, Sam Young 27, Willie Beavers 5. And Willie Beavers actually played better than Sam Young did this game. Sam Young he's not the guy we need. I don't know what else to say. He's a very poor run blocker, but what he can do is he can slow down good pass rushers. That's kind of his MO. But is that good enough to stop you from, going and making a transition and getting somebody that can back you up? Now, on the right side, very similar. McGlinchey, 38 snaps right tackle. Justin School, 27. Andrew Lauderdale, 5. And it got bad. School was terrible. Lauderdale wasn't much better. McGlinchey and Staley had pretty good games. Besides the one play where Staley just got destroyed for a sack, I don't know, he lost the edge and his momentum and position was bad, and he tried to hold on, almost got a holding call and a sack allowed, but it was just bad. Now, if we look at the right guard position, Pearson started and played absolutely incredible, and Daniel Brunskill came in next at right guard. He was decent, and Ross Reynolds, who is I had as a roster guy, he looked great at the end, but he only got 5 snaps. And so you can kind of see what the coaching staff is already starting to think. They keep giving all these different guys spots for that backup right guard, backup left guard, and nobody wants it. Ross Reynolds gets a shot a few weeks ago, craps the bed. This week, Daniel Brunskill gets in there. He plays okay. I think it's possible that he is winning that position, because if we look at the other side, left guard, Laken Tomlinson got 38 snaps. He hasn't looked great this preseason, but not bad. Najee Torin was bad. Najee Torin was really, really bad. He gets credited with him and Brunskill kind of shared that sack, but Torin got a pretty bad grade. He got 27 snaps, and they've moved him around both guard spots, center, all those things, and in my opinion, he has shown this team he's not ready. But if you don't want to make any transactions, you got to keep somebody. So who's that going to be? I'd go with the most recent, hottest, and Wesley Johnson backed up the center. Ben Garland played 38 snaps. Wesley Johnson 27. Dylan Day 5. And I'll say this about Wesley Johnson: he doesn't get any movement in the run game. However, nobody moves him in the passing game. And one of my favorite things about centers, I do a lot of draft work and, position breakdowns and all those things. And going off of Bill Walsh's, scouting notes, one of the best things about centers that he talks about a lot, you can't give up ground in the pass game. Like, you need to stalemate those guys up front. And for some reason, this guy just continues to dominate in that area. So I absolutely love that from him. Now, if we jump over just to the stat sheet, let's go to the quarterbacks. And here's the deal. Jimmy Garoppolo played amazing. He goes 14 for 20, 70% completion percentage, 188 yards, 9.4 yards per attempt, which is unbelievable. 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. He was sacked once. He had 1 tipped pass at the line of scrimmage. He had 1 drop pass from Levine Tololo, but 9 first downs. on 20 passes. So that basically means every time he drops back to make a pass, every other time is a first down. His NFL rating was a 116.2, which is that's awesome. Now, Nick Mullins, and I'll break down the pressure rate here in a second. He goes 8 for 11, very efficient again, 72.7 completion percentage, only 84 yards, but he missed a couple passes, and also I must say, Jimmy Garoppolo, He had one awful pass, one of the worst passes I've seen all preseason from him, where he threw it to Dante Pettis, who was basically bracketed inside and out with a safety over the top, and he didn't rifle it in there fast enough. It should have been intercepted, but we got lucky on that one. So Jimmy Garoppolo played great. He played well enough to win this game. If he can continue to perform like this, it's pretty special. However, he's not the best guy in the league or anything along those lines. No touchdowns, no interceptions for Nick Mullins. He was sacked one time, but 5 first downs, again, on 11 passes. Like, you've got to love these numbers that are coming out. And, if they can keep doing this, we're going to be okay. And a big reason why these quarterbacks were so successful is because there was no pressure. Jimmy Garoppolo, on his 21 dropbacks, he only had 20 attempts because he had the sack. He was only under pressure for 2 snaps. And so, one time he was sacked, and then one time was an incomplete pass. So if we can protect our quarterback, this offense is going to be just fine. We just need to make sure that, we keep them just upright and okay, because, they brought 4 different blitzes against Jimmy Garoppolo, but there was no issues with what to do there. If we could pick up the blitz, and, I gave Tevin Coleman a bad rap, but he did twice where he stayed in and took on a backer and allowed the quarterback to get the ball off. Now, Nick Mullins, he was under pressure one play out of his 12 dropbacks, and that was one of his incompletions. So that's the thing that's key. If we can keep these guys upright and we do not let anybody hit them, we're going to be just fine. Now, if we look at rushing grades, and this is huge, because here's the deal. Matt Breida is amazing. I don't know what else to say. Finished with over 5 yards per carry last year, and he just seems to pick up right where he left off. His speed is unbelievable, and I'm just talking about rushing here. He goes 7 attempts for 44 yards, 6.3 yards per carry. He gets 2 first downs. One of his runs is, for over 10 yards, and 19 of his yards are after contact that he created on his own. This is who he is. He is special. He just creates. Tevin Coleman, 9 attempts for 19 yards. That's not helping. You can't have a 2.1 yard per carry. That's not going to be his thing. And I will say this, and if you go back and watch Tevin Coleman's film, whether all the way back in Indiana, his MO has never changed. In Atlanta with the Falcons and now here. He is a guy that is tackled for 1 yard, 2 yards, 1 yard, 2 yards, then a 60-yarder. He is a person with elite speed. All of our running backs are super, super quick. But for Tevin Coleman to get going, he is a home run threat that needs space. And not space like in an open field. He needs a crease. If with that zone blocking scheme that Kyle Shanahan does, it's made perfect for Tevin Coleman, who's a one-cut runner. He doesn't have wiggle. He's a bigger-bodied speed track guy. But if there's congestion at the line, and we've continued to see this, he's not going to be falling forward for, 4+ yards. It's not really who he is. He's a guy that's going to be 1 yard, 2 yards, 3 yards, 50 yards. So with him, it's just, kind of wait. See what's going to happen, but he's going to have those highlights where he's just going to bust one because his speed is unbelievable, and his body, the way that he runs, like he's built like a linebacker. He's a big dude. Jeff Wilson Jr., 12 carries. He had 45 yards. Not bad at all. 2 touchdowns, 4 first downs, created 22 yards after contact, and he was just consistent. I mean, that guy, really, really like him. I think maybe practice squad's best case scenario. I doubt that he's going to have a place. Austin Walter, 5 attempts for 20 yards, again, 3.8 yards. Nothing really wrong there. 1 first down and 9 yards after contact. So that's great. Nothing really bad there besides Tevin Coleman. He struggled a little bit, but Matt Breida continues to be the guy. I really think he should be the first guy out every single game. And, if I had it my way, it'd be a 60-40 split with Breida getting 60% of the carries. That's just me. Now let's talk about receiving grades. And again, number 1 receiving grade is Matt Breida. 2 catches on 2 targets for 31 yards and a touchdown. And just a guy that again, yards after the catch. He had that one screen where he catches the ball and he's got a defender holding on to his damn jersey and just shakes him off and takes off. Creates an extra 16 yards, and it would have been a 3rd and 12 if he would have went down whenever he got touched. But instead, he gets a first down and just keeps the drive going. So both of his catches resulted in a first down or a touchdown, and obviously, that we come out in an empty set, and this is one thing that the 49ers can do because it's schematic. We have Matt Breida out there, and we have Kyle Juszczyk, and we have a tight end. So it's looking like, we have 21 personnel with 2 backs and a tight end, which means they've got to keep in their linebackers. Well, we break the huddle, and we go empty set. So that means you've got at least 2 linebackers out in coverage against Kyle Juszczyk and Matt Breida. Breida runs a wheel route or a rub wheel, whatever you want to call it. I think it was Jordan Matthews. Kind of picks his player, just a natural pick, and the 2 players run into each other, 2 defenders, and we hit a wheel route, which was just absolutely a little overthrown by Jimmy, but that's the thing that Matt Breida brings to you. And so absolutely love that guy. Richie James, 4 catches on 4 targets. Just setting it up, man, and looking good in the return game. I'm really excited to see what Richie can do. 4 catches for 66 yards. Got 3 first downs. And so you just got to love that, man. And here's the thing that's special about Richie James is that he can create on his own. I went back and dogged him after the first preseason game because he didn't create. He was tackled by the first guy every single time, but he did have that one awesome missed tackle that he created all on his own, and that's what you want. Jordan Matthews, 2 catches on 3 targets for 33 yards. He could have had 100 yards and a touchdown, to be honest with you, and 13 yards after the catch that he created. Juszczyk got 2 catches on 2 targets for 9 yards. Nothing really special, but got to move the chains. Marquise Goodwin continues to look good. Dante Pettis was up and down. He was targeted a lot early. He was targeted 2 times in the first 3 plays by Jimmy Garoppolo, and they just kept going to him. He played the most snaps of all the wide receivers, and Kyle Shanahan has been adamant, we need this kid to step up because we're going to rely on him. He'll be out there the first play, week 1. He's going to be the starting guy. But 3 catches on 5 targets for 36 yards. Yeah, you want to take that. 21 yards created. He's special. He's just got to click. Kendrick Bourne came back with another solid performance, continues to block very, very well. 2 catches on 2 targets for 25 yards, both resulted in first downs. You love to see that because his problem has been middle of the field, and he's starting to get some work done. Deebo Samuel had a pretty bad game. Run blocking really hurt his score quite a bit, but he got 2 catches on 3 targets for 27 yards. And nothing really special there. He did get 1 first down, but not the Deebo performance that we are hoping for. 1 catch on 1 target for Tevin Coleman for 2 yards. Again, brought down first contact. Hate to see that. Dwelly, his catch rate continues to be low. Probably the one thing holding him back. 2 catches on 4 targets for 30 yards, which whenever he gets the ball in his hand, he plays really, really well, but he had a drop. That's going to be problematic. And Caden Smith, 1 catch on 2 targets there. So that's going to do it for our offensive breakdown. Tomorrow, I will be back with the defense. Really excited about that because, man, there was a lot of good things to talk about. Our defense continues to just play very, very well. But that's going to do it for us at the 49ers Rush Podcast. Again, head over to MyBookie, use promo code 49ers to make sure they match your entire deposit up to $1,000.